Good morning, students, and I welcome you all again to the English class. It's day 4 and part 1. And today we are going to discuss the chapter word by word as is there in your book. So we have today's lesson as Nelson Mandela, Long Walk to Freedom, explanation of the text, page number 17 and 19. As the chapter is really long and it requires a lot of explanation, we'll go page wise. So this is Nelson Mandela, if you can see in the picture. So we begin with the page, that's page number 70. 10th May dawned bright and clear. For the past few days, I had been pleasantly besieged by dignitaries and world leaders who were coming to pay their respects before the inauguration. So 10th May 1994, as I've already told you in the previous video, was the day on which Nelson Mandela was sworn in as the president of the South African region. Now, for the past few days, the leaders were flown in to South Africa from various regions from all over the world, and they were there surrounding Mr. Nelson to congratulate him for his grand success of doing away with apartheid, and secondly, by becoming the first black president of South Africa. The inauguration would be the largest gathering ever of international leaders on South African soil. The ceremonies took place in the lovely sandstone amphitheater found by the Union buildings in Pretoria. For decades, this had been the seat of white supremacy, and now it was the site of a rainbow gathering of different colors and nations for the installation of South Africa's first democratic, non racial government. Right? Now, the particular ceremony, the inaugural ceremony in which Nelson Mandela was to be sworn in as the president of South Africa, it was to be held in an amphitheater. Amphitheater can be compared to a architectural structure that is almost similar to our stadiums, right? For years and years, this particular region had been under the control of the white people, so white supremacy. And today, he felt so happy to see that people from all races, all castes, all complexions have gathered there to pay their tribute to congratulate Mr. Nelson Mandela. On that lovely autumn day, I was accompanied by my daughter Zinani. On the podium, Mr. De Klerk was first sworn in as second deputy president. So Mr. Nelson was accompanied by his daughter Zinani, and Mr. Clark was sworn in as the second deputy president. Now we move to page number 18. Thabo Mbeki was sworn in as the first deputy president. When it was my turn, I pledged to obey and uphold the Constitution and to devote myself to the well being of the Republic and its people. Now, after Mr. Mbeki was sworn as the first deputy president, it was time for Nelson to come and take his oath as the president of South Africa. And he promised to obey and keep the respect of the Constitution and to devote himself and his life for the well being of the people of South Africa. To the assembled guests and the watching world, I said, today, all of us do, by our presence here, confer glory and hope to newborn liberty. Out of the experience of an extraordinary human disaster that lasted too long, must be born a society of which all humanity will be proud. So he said that today I can just see and feel and sense it because so many leaders have come all from all across the world to congratulate me, to see me taking an oath as the president of South Africa. I feel that we have finally given our respect to the newly found freedom from apartheid. And he literally compares apartheid to an extraordinary human disaster. So he felt that after suffering and struggling for so many years, finally now the society of South African people will be filled with humanity of which they should be really proud of. We who were outlaws, a person who is against law or a person who is a lawbreaker. That was the status given to the blacks all over South Africa. not so long ago, have today been given the rare privilege to be the host to the nations of the world on our own soil. Now he says, we as the black Africans or the South Africans who were darker in complexion, we were regarded as lawbreakers. We've already discussed in the previous video how they were ill treated by the whites in public places, in terms of schooling and education and jobs, everywhere the whites were given priority and the blacks were considered to be an outcast group of people. And so he says, today I feel it as a privilege, as a special right being given to me that I am able to host leaders and authorities and people all across the world. We thank all of our distinguished international guests for having come to take possession with the people of our country of what is, after all, a common victory for justice, for peace, for human dignity. So he says, I am just thanking all my dignitaries, all the international guests who have come today to see, to witness that finally there has been a victory of justice, victory of peace, and human respect over apartheid. We have at last achieved our political emancipation. We pledge ourselves to liberate all our people from the continuing bondage of poverty, deprivation, suffering, gender, and other discrimination. He also promised in his particular speech that he is going to help people to come out of the bondage or slavery of poverty, being poor, deprivation, being deprived of their rights or something that is necessary for them to survive, sufferings, gender, and other kinds of discrimination. Never, never, and never again shall it be that this beautiful land will again experience the oppression of one by another. He also held a strong promise while he was speaking that he will keep it very much in place, that there will be never, never, and never any kind of discrimination or oppression of some race on the other. The sun shall never set on so glorious a human achievement, and there'll be always the sun shining brightly on this particular achievement of Nelson and his race, where they had completely destroyed the system of apartheid. Let freedom reign, God bless Africa. And he was so happy, and he just said in his concluding statement that I believe that God should bless Africa, should help it to achieve success and to develop, and freedom should be the thing that should be going throughout the African soil. Now we move to page number 19. A few moments later, we all lifted our eyes in awe as a spectacular array of South African jets, helicopters, and troop carriers rode in perfect formation over the Union buildings. Now, not only the people, the dignitaries worldwide, but even the Air Force gave its tribute to the president. And everybody was filled with awe, feeling of wonder. It was an admirable, beautiful array of South African jets, a lovely scene in the sky that was giving perfect formations, like we have formations of jets and other kinds of Air Force planes on Republic Day and the Independence Day. It was not only a display of pinpoint precision and military force, but a demonstration of the military's loyalty to democracy, to a new government that had been freely and fairly elected. It was just not a show by the Air Force, by the military powers, but it was actually a promise and assurance of loyalty towards the newly formed democratic government. Only moments before, the highest generals of South Africa, African Defense Force, and police, their chests bedecked, decorated with medals, with ribbons and medals from days gone by, saluted me and pledged their loyalty. Now, all the defense forces, the heads, they came in and they saluted, they paid respect to the newly found president of South Africa, that was Nelson Mandela. I was not unmindful of the fact, that means to be unaware, that not so many years before they would not have saluted but arrested me. Just imagine the plight Nelson and his race must have gone through. He was just thinking that some years back, these people alone would have arrested me rather than giving me a salute. So that was the condition, and he felt so proud of the fact that he and his people were able to free themselves from apartheid, and today the tables had turned. People were witnessing a complete makeover of the government that was filled with discrimination, and now it was a democratic one. Finally, a chevron of Impala jets left a smoke trail of the black, red, green, blue, and gold of the new South African flag. The day was symbolized for me by the playing of our two national anthems and the vision of whites singing Nkosi Sikelel, I Africa, and blacks singing Des Stem, the oldest anthem of the Republic. Now, as he was just thinking, and he was so happy about the change that he had brought in South Africa, there was a chevron. Chevron is a kind of formation of V shape that is there in the sky by the jets. And these jets, while they were flying, they dropped color in the sky that was resembling to the colors in the South African flag. And finally, both the whites and the blacks, they sang each other's anthems, though nobody knew each other's anthems or the lyrics of the anthem, but they were somehow managing to catch up with the tune. Although that day neither group knew the lyrics of the anthem, they once despised, did not like, hate, they would soon know the words by heart. On the day of the inauguration, I was overwhelmed, overjoyed with a sense of history. In the first decade of the 20th century, a few years after the bitter Anglo Boer War and before my own birth, the white skinned peoples of South Africa patched up their differences and erected a system of racial domination against the dark skinned peoples of their own land. The structure they created formed the basis of one of the harshest, most inhumane societies the world had ever known. So, what happened? With the white skinned people ruling over South Africa, they made this particular political law known as apartheid that Nelson regarded as the harshest, most cruel thing in the world, most inhumane, where the society in the world never knew of. So, this was our page number 19. In the next session of our day 4, we'll be taking up pages 20 to 23. Thank you.